Hey guys, what is going on? Jack from superstringinglax here. Today we talk about the true frequency. So guys, I was really fortunate to be able to get my hands on a true frequency that I'm stringing up for a coach at my school, actually from Lauren from Fire Threats, who sent the head out because he wanted to give the full stick as a gift to the coach. So I'm just the middleman here, so I strung up the fire mesh and the head to give to the coach. And it actually turned out super nice. So we're going to be doing a separate review on fire mesh. If you haven't seen that video already, it's either not up yet or you missed it. So I'm going to leave the link in the description below for how you can see that video. That being said, let's talk about the True frequency. So if you guys don't know who True is, they are a lacrosse company who for a long time just were kind of the behind the scenes guys that manufacturing many of the largest company shafts. But about 2 years ago, they started making their own shafts called the True handles. You guys have probably seen that I've reviewed, I think, 2 or 3 of those True shafts. If you haven't seen any of those reviews, once again, I'll link them all in the description. But True came out with a couple new heads this past year, and they kind of went under the radar in a way. They weren't too big on Instagram, I know. A couple people had them, one of them being Lauren, as well as I know Lacrosse Men had them, but honestly not too many people had access to the head. This is my first time ever checking out the True frequency, and there's a lot of subtle but important details I'm going to point out before we get into breaking down this head. So first of all, there are 3 different specs you can get the True frequency in. There is a speed spec, which is more for like your offensive mindset guys. Then there is a universal set, and then there is a defensive set, which obviously is for defensemen. And all 3 of those heads, if I'm not incorrect, come in at around $85 in terms of the price point. So let's take a look at the head. It has a very wide face shape even for the universal spec. And one thing that was interesting I noticed between the speed as well as the defensive is the face shape of the head doesn't seem to change. The face shape of the head, that being just what you see right here, is actually very similar for all 3 of the heads. The only thing that's different is the sidewall structure. For the defensive head, it's really elongated, and then it kind of curves upwards at the end. And then for the speed, there's just some subtle differences in the sidewall, but ultimately, you're not going to get a big change in face shape if you're picking up a different version of the spec. So that being said, let's talk about this face shape and what it offers. So as you can see, the face shape's pretty wide, so as a result, you're going to have to string a pretty channel pocket in order for it to be super consistent. But the face shape's pretty nice in the sense that it starts out tight and then slowly and gradually just works upwards to widen out. Nothing too crazy. Just a pretty typical face shape, nothing out of the ordinary. Now let's break into the top string. So it just has 6 large holes you can fit 4 or even 5 strings in. Some grip where you're putting the strings in, but once again, nothing too crazy. The sidewall is also pretty typical, at least with the universal. Just a very simple 3-strut system. These 3 struts here, 1, 2, and 3, are going to be the important ones. All these down here just for design and cutting out weight. Those are the important ones, but once you get it towards the defensive version, which I unfortunately don't have to show you guys, it gets a little crazy in terms of what they're doing to sidewall, in a good way though, not in a bad. The True frequency strings up a mid-low pocket really well. That's what I put in with the fire mesh, but it was a pretty typical string job, nothing too out of the ordinary. One thing I love about the True frequency is just how sturdy and stable it is. I can just automatically tell that this thing is going to be extremely good and lasting a lot of seasons, being durable, not warping, etc. And that's because the guys at True have been manufacturing lacrosse products for decades, so they know extremely well what they need to do in order for the application process of a certain design into a certain head in order for it to be successful in the long term. And this head is just extremely well built. You can just tell that off the bat. It's so sturdy in all these areas. The throat's well constructed, the sidewalls are well constructed. The plastic is like a little bit more towards a matte finish than a gloss, but it's still very glossy. But overall, it's just a really solid head. I mean, for $85, if you're not looking to buy the $90, $95, $100 price range, it's a solid option and one that you can't go wrong with. I would especially recommend the universal spec for middies, especially a 2-way midi. If you're a defensive midi, this would be a solid option for you, as well as an attackman who likes a wider face shape. I think you can definitely get a lot of use out of this. But I think the universal spec would be perfect for any attackman. But the face shape also tends itself well towards if you are a defenseman and attackman, and that just differs in terms of what the sidewall options are going to be. And you can check out all that info on their website, because unfortunately I wasn't given the speed in the defensive version. Last thing I want to talk about is just the offset. It is a pretty typical offset. The only thing that's a little bit abnormal is they have a little dip in the sidewall, but it doesn't, that's purely aesthetic, and it doesn't really change the way the sidewall functions, because it only applies to the outside of the head, and the inside of the sidewall is actually just normal. So the offset's pretty normal. Loops down a little bit and then comes back up horizontal. Pretty simple. All in all, it's really a solid option, and if you want to pick up a true frequency, I'll send you over to their website where they give you information about their retailers. But other than that, I was pretty impressed with the head, and I think I would recommend, and I would definitely recommend it to any player out there who's looking to just get a pretty solid option without taking too much money out of the bank. That's it for this video, guys. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for watching.